Hey everybody, and welcome back to Horror Film Lovers First Time Watch Fridays. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I'm here with.
Oh, Anna Exley.
How are you doing, Anna?
I'm doing great.
Great. It's been a while since I've done this show. I took a little bit of a hiatus, but I wanted to bring it back, and I thought, I asked out on Instagram. You're the only one, weirdly enough,
Oh,
that actually hit me up, which is fine. I was actually surprised anybody did, but you were the only one, and I was like, all right, cool. We're definitely doing this.
oh,
Um, and so we watched the movie, the 2021 film Back Road, which I kind of warned you about before you got to watch it, right? Because you hadn't seen
yeah.
it yet. And it is pretty brutal, pretty graphic. It's got some scenes that might trigger some people. So if you're not into, I can't even say them on YouTube without getting in trouble as the R word. But if you're not into that, watching that, which nobody should be into it, but
Yeah.
if you're not okay with it, is what I should say. If you're not okay with that and it triggers you to see, there's so you apparently YouTube has words that will get you in trouble for saying them. So I've got to be careful how I phrase it. But there are sexual issues, sexual stuff that happens, and I think I can say that, but it's pretty brutal. It is not for the faint of heart. What did you think when you first watched it?
Well, I'm really, really critical of slasher movies. I do like to talk about them and make fun of them, but a lot of it was just me writing down like funny things that weren't maybe they were meant to be funny, because I know a lot of this genre, it's like comedy horror, but it's a weird comedy in a way where you're not supposed to take it seriously.
Right.
So I was just writing down things that I thought were weird or maybe meant to be a joke in a way that's like they couldn't have possibly acted this out seriously in a way.
Like what? Like what? Give me an example.
A lot of the dialogue, I have I have some dialogue written. Get back in touch with your natural self. It's American, you are American, right? Lines like that where I'm like, did someone review the dialogue or did they
Probably not.
probably
Um,
not?
with a lot of these movies, what happens, and you're an actor, so like you've been in low budget horror films, so but it, the thing that happens generally, and this is coming from a writer director myself, is generally speaking, a writer will write out like a first draft or whatever, then they'll go out to direct it, and then they will try to fix everything that needs to be fixed on the spot on the set, because they think, oh, we can just make this now. Let's go just shoot this. And, but they don't take the time or the effort to really make the script good. And and a lot of writers are very um I don't know the exact word to say, but they don't like criticism, because they feel like this is their baby. They're very and I as a writer, I love constructive criticism. If you just
Oh
say
yeah,
that thing sucks, I don't want to hear that.
yeah.
But if you tell me like constructive criticism, I want to hear it. Like I want to know if something isn't working for people and people are like that line doesn't make any sense, like you said, then so what were you gonna say?
To me, it almost sounds like the writers they wrote everything out and the lines are written well, but they're just not written as someone would actually say them. So maybe they wrote everything down and they just didn't speak it out loud or hear it spoken back to them, which
Hmm.
can help a lot of writers sometimes. For me, when I write, I tend to do the exact opposite, and I focus really, really heavily on creating realistic dialogue to a point where sometimes I have to step back and be like, okay, this is real, but it's too hard to read. And I have to step back and trust that my readers or actors who are acting a scene are gonna take it and make it more real. But
Exactly.
yeah,
That,
this, the,
that's the way to really
yeah,
do it,
yeah.
as opposed to, let's just write a bunch of shit and then just, and I wonder how much of it's actually improv too. Like, I
Mm,
wonder how much leeway the director, Andrew Pizzo, I think that's how you say his name, gave to the actors because he's not like normally a director. Like he's
mm,
only done a couple projects and stuff, and he's got a bunch in the works, and good for him. But he this isn't his like normal day-to-day job. His normal day-to-day job is he's a cinematographer. And the cinematography on this movie looked good. Like
yeah.
I had no problem with it. Nothing was out of focus. The shots were well organized enough where, I mean, it wasn't. I've been watching these really, really good movies lately, and you can definitely tell when a director puts effort into like making people stand up or something, or
Yeah.
like, from the shot from the bottom and whatever. Um, it really didn't have that much of stuff here, and I think a lot of that had to do with he was directing, to writing, producing, and doing this D King, um and he was also an actor in it. Apparently, he
Oh,
played himself. I don't remember that character necessarily, but it
yeah.
just said Andrew Pizzo as himself and this other guy as himself. So I'm guessing maybe they're extras that they just didn't want to give themselves character names because why give themselves character names when they're
Yeah.
just extras? Because I don't think anybody was like, "Hey, that's Andrew Pizzo, the director," which would have been cool,
Yeah.
But I mean, I would have been okay with that. That would have been a little like a wink, wink to the audience, but
Yeah.
I don't think we got any of that.
No. I did notice the cinematography was good. It was kind of bland in a way compared to
Mm.
like multi-million dollar Hollywood movies. But then again, like it's the genre. It's a slasher. It's a low budget. I think is it technically indie?
Yeah, it's
Or
indie. It's
indie,
definitely indie
yeah.
because they did
So,
not
yeah.
have like a Hollywood budget or anything.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
except for the practical effects. They went all the way on that, I think.
the
Or as
practical effects were good. Um,
yeah.
the gore. But that was like the only highlight to the movie was the gore.
Yeah.
You know, the one character I hated, absolutely hated. And spoiler alert, there will be spoilers. We can spoil it or spoil.
Okay.
So if you haven't watched this movie, go on Tubi right now. It's on Tubi for free. Go check it out. It's called Backroad, 2021. Uh, and the only reason I picked this movie was because it just kept popping up on my like recommended all the time, and I was just like, all right, you know what? Let's just do this. I hadn't watched it. It was a first time watch. So when I watched it and you said you hadn't, I was like, uh-oh, there's some things in it that just might not be okay with certain people and stuff. So I always have to check. But you're an actor, so and would you turn down a scene that had like sexual stuff like that in it?
Oh yeah, I actually have. A couple years ago, a director reached out to me on Instagram, and it wasn't a horror. It was a really. I read the script and I saw some of his previous works, and they're really like weird in a way I couldn't describe, but involved nudity. I was like, hey, I'm not really comfortable with that. And he was like, that's cool. Thank you for letting me know. So luckily they're really the people I work with are really okay with my limitations, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't be able to act in this one.
Well, I mean, so would you have turned it down even if you weren't the character that had that scene happen to them?
Um, I if I had a character that, if I was in a role like maybe the leading lady, I can't remember if she was in any scenes. I kind of skipped the first 4 minutes. Maybe if I was in a leading role like hers, or even the guy's role, the last standing guy who doesn't really do anything too bad, I'd be okay acting in a movie like that as long as I didn't have to do any of the too graphic nudity scenes.
Yeah, the first 4 minutes are basically this guy, Lucky something or whatever, I think, who's in a tent,
Yeah.
and he gets and it's typical. Like, I mean, I understand people like to do homages or people like to do whatever, but and they call this a cabin in the woods style slasher in the whatever. It is not. The cabin in the woods slasher would have them at the cabin pretty quickly. Like that's the whole point, is they're at the cabin, spending time at the cabin. They're in the cabin for maybe 5 minutes of the movie, like 10 minutes at the most.
Oh
It
yeah.
really was pretty sad because the rest of the movie took place either in the woods or it took a long ass time to get to the cabin where they try I felt like he tried to be very Eli Roth in Cabin Fever, where they were trying to do something like there's that scene in Cabin Fever where uh and it's a very funny sort of thing, but at first it's not funny. So they get to the have you seen Cabin Fever?
I haven't.
Okay, well, I don't know. Do you want a spoiler of it or no?
Sure.
Okay. So there's a scene where uh the kids come into a country style hick style what is it? Uh I don't know, like it's a gas station, whatever ish, yeah, place. And they're just looking for snacks or whatever, and I think they're filling up their tank or whatever. And there's a scene where they look over and they go, what's the um fox urine for? It was like, oh, that's for foxes, right? He goes, what's the gun over there for? Oh, that's for, and he says the N-word to them.
Oh.
And they just kind of stare, right? Like, oh God, this is a very racist man here. Then later after the whole movie's ended, right? A bunch of black guys get out of a car and start heading into
Oh.
that thing. And he goes, he's like, I'm gonna go get my gun, or I'm gonna go get the gun. So he
Oh.
goes to go get the gun. They go into the room, into the thing, and he goes, here, I polished it all up for you guys. This is because that gun was for his,
Oh.
you know. And that was the joke. And that is much funnier than anything I saw in this movie. Like,
Yeah.
this movie had no comedy, really. Everybody was yelling at each other all the time. I'm like, who wants to spend a whole weekend with all of these people just yelling if they can't even get to the place without arguing and stuff? And then so yeah, and they say the N word like a million times, and I was just like very uncomfortable, and maybe that was the point, but I don't I don't want to hang out with like I don't want to watch movies with people like that, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, what did you think about that?
Um. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. Um. Well, the one scene where after they run over the kid and they're arguing about what to do and they try to dump the body, I was thinking, the vacation should be over. Like, I understand not wanting to go to the police and getting in trouble. I understand that part, but like, I would not want to go to the cabin. Like,
Yeah,
the
because
party's over.
then you're like sitting with it the whole weekend, like
Yeah.
with this like thought about what just happened,
They're just sadly like doing drugs in the corner, like, oh, I'm a murderer.
I know,
Like,
like, and they're yelling at each other the whole time
yeah,
too. And like, I'm like, oh my God, why are you even still around each other? Like, you guys all hate each other, it seems.
yeah,
Except, like, the only person who doesn't hate the other person is like the two friends.
Mm,
or whatever. Aside from like the two girls,
mm,
and at one point they do kind of get mad at each other because it's like, you kind of invited these, I mean, it becomes this thing where you're all hanging out with people you don't like. Why are we doing this?
yeah.
Especially like and wasn't the guy like the racist guy?
Mm.
Wasn't he like a ex-boyfriend or something?
Yeah, he was the ex of the blonde or the blonde
Yeah.
girls. Yeah, I
Yeah.
forget their names.
I forget their names too. The names don't mean anything. The characters don't really mean anything. Um there's no redeeming part of like
Mm,
even the I guess the main girl. I didn't care if she lived or died. Didn't care if the
yeah.
main guy lived or died. I hated him. Um Absolutely hated him. The only person I did like are those two girls. Like those two friends. I liked them enough that I wanted to see what was going to happen, but more to see if they were going to die, you
Yeah.
know, and stuff. And if they died, I wasn't going to shed a tear. Um, and that's the problem with horror films, especially slashers today. Is like I love movies like Friday the 13th, the original Friday the 13th, where you actually care about Adrienne King. You want her to survive because, the whole movie is set up where you actually like this chick and everything. Halloween, you want to see Jamie Lee Curtis win at the end. Um, you know, all of those movies where there's a final girl, you want to see them win at the end because you like them. When you don't like anybody and then somebody lives, then you're like, oh, you know. I don't think anybody really lived to this one. I think they
No.
all died. And there's a
Yeah.
sequel coming,
Oh, wow.
which makes no sense at all because everybody, the whole family's not back. The family is not back, apparently. Apparently, there's a whole new group of people at the same area doing the
Huh.
same thing. I'm like, why even, what? You know?
They're gonna have to find a different kid to run over.
I are they gonna do that again? Is this gonna be like the same movie? It's just part two of it, Like, oh
Like, I didn't even care about the villains. They're just random redneck people.
yeah,
Like, I don't even care to see them again. I don't know.
because you don't get to spend enough time with them. That's the biggest problem I had is like you get them, but only when they're attacking or whatever, right? You don't get to spend time when they're not attacking.
Yeah.
And I think I guess that doesn't happen like Wrong Turn, but like Wrong Turn still had enough like Eliza Dushku and that is interesting enough to like warrant the whole movie around,
Yeah.
and the villains are the villains. But this, like, I mean, should we care that? And was the kid a part of their family?
Yeah, he was someone's son, and that was the one moment where, because the dad was talking like, "Who killed my boy?" And that was the one moment where I was almost like, "Oh, I can kind of follow this character," because it's almost starting to turn into like a Pumpkinhead story about a father's revenge. But then at the end, there's no mention of it. It turns into Texas Chainsaw cannibalistic thing. It's like, okay,
Yeah, Wrong Turn, all those different
yeah,
movies, like, and not even in a good way,
yeah.
like I don't know. And what should happen in these movies? Because they said they wanted a cabin that was. I have a feeling like the movie got made because of the cabin. Because the director was like, I got a cabin for a weekend. Let's go make a movie. And I'll cast all these, people, whatever, and we'll go make a movie. And then you only see the cabin for whatever because they had cabin for the weekend. And that's it. But like, it's not a cabin in the woods story. It should have been a broke down car movie where the characters are going to the cabin and their car breaks down or they take a wrong direction, a wrong turn, and they go into this and they kill the kid. And then all of a sudden, it kind of like, so there was a movie, it was a creature feature called Grizzly Rage.
Mm,
And it's this Canadian film starring Kate Todd, and it's amazing. But it is because it's about a grizzly bear mama who, after the cub is accidentally killed by the guys, their car breaks down and they're in the middle of the woods, and there's an angry bear looking for them. That should have been where it went. Like I would have been okay with that. I would have been okay with a broke the car breaks down after they kill the kid. Their car doesn't seem to work or something. And then they're like, "Oh shit, what do we do?" And they go to try to find the nearest way to get out. And meanwhile, there's a whole family of crazy people. When they find out their kid's dead, that's what they go after. That's where I would have gone with this because you can still have those annoying kids, um, or whatever teens that are trying to go to their thing, but they took a wrong turn, and it just would have worked. But I feel like they took a couple wrong turns in the script, and they just got themselves in a hole. Like so. Okay, so they are traveling around. We forgot to mention that there's two cops where, like, I guess they're weed smoking cops, which, like, whatever. And they pull over the people and they say, that was, we hit a deer and stuff. And then they're like, they let them go because they are dumb, I guess. They're just there to be like suspense if they're gonna get caught with this kid or not, which just drove. I think the movie was too long already to begin with, and that just made it even longer because like none of that really comes back into play at the end of the movie or anything. It's not like those cops were part of the family, which that would have been cool too, wouldn't it?
yeah.
If the
Yeah.
cops were part of the family, but no, the cops come and attack uh, uh attack the other family and stuff, and then it's just annoying. Um,
Yeah. Like I have a problem with the way the actors even portrayed the cops because it's like you can play a serious cop and then you can play a cop who's kind of corrupt and kind of acts serious but is corrupt and doesn't take their job seriously and is letting people do horrible things. But these guys were just I didn't even believe them to be cops. They were just guys in uniform like eating donuts in the car.
wow, yeah,
So,
donuts and cops. Like,
yeah.
what
Yeah.
what a fun cliche, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, that's another thing too, is you're right, because um, if this had been a horror comedy, like, there's a great movie, Bloody Summer Camp, and it's got a lot of comedy in it. It's also on Tubi. My friend Michael is in it. My friend Dave made it,
Oh,
and
cool.
it is a really fun movie. And Dave Sheridan is in it. He was the guy from um Scary Movie. He played like the deputy doofus or whatever character, and he is funny as hell in it. But he plays like a sheriff that just, or whatever, deputy or something that just kind of like that, where but he's just like a complete idiot, you
Yeah.
know. But it's done in comedy and jest and funniness, and it makes the movie more interesting and more, but this wasn't this felt like out of place, like they were maybe trying to do that, but like
Yeah.
didn't know how to like balance the weirdness with everything else.
Yeah. Like you said, if they were there to build suspense, like from the instant I saw them, I was like, oh, these cops are not going to do anything. They're not going to be helpful. They're not going to save anybody. They're not even going to. The scene where they raid the cabin and try to arrest one of the guys was like completely wow, he just opens fire on one person and the other one is like, damn it, stop shooting.
Right.
I was one of the scenes where like, oh, I don't buy these actors as cops
Well, yeah,
less
and
than I guess.
and that's the thing, is it's not the actor's fault. It's the
Yeah.
writer's fault, because and director's fault. That's Andrew Pizzo's fault, because the problem with this, with it, is like these characters are supposed to, I guess, be comic relief in a way,
Yeah.
because um and this gets me on my nerves because like it gets to the point of being sort of political in a way because we kind of don't like cops in this world, right? Cops are getting defunded. There's a lot of issues with cops. Cops are kind of shooting whoever they feel like shooting, that sort of thing. So we put these into these movies and it doesn't work for this style of film and that's the problem. And maybe I'd love if Andrew watched this video and commented that I was, gave me a long thing of like why I was wrong. Because I'll admit, maybe if I was wrong, but I don't think I am. I think he was new to writing, new to directing, not new to DPing, maybe not new to editing, but he and if you watch the end of the movie, because I saw like a review of it, and somebody goes, "I've never seen so many credits to one person, in my life, like in on separate cards." It would be like directed by, executive producer by, produced by. You do not know. No, 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 no. No, this is I'm going to tell you guys this here. An executive producer and a producer are two separate things. They're not the same person. And an executive producer is the person who funds the money, and that's all the title needs to be. If they are also the producer, they still stay as the executive producer. If they're just a producer, they stay as the producer. It it bugs me when I see this because it shows how novice the filmmakers are when they allow stuff like that. And and the fact that they want to make a sequel to this, and they've already got a cast up and all that other stuff, I think it might be already being made at this rate. I hope they learned harsh lessons from this, of what not to do, you know.
There's actually a movie that reminds me a lot of this one, except it's a lot I enjoyed watching a lot better, but it kind of follows the same of a girl getting taking a wrong turn and getting attacked by people living in the country and the police are corrupt. It's called Rust Creek. It's on Netflix. And I remember at first I wasn't going to watch it, and I saw a little preview of it on Netflix. And she's in her car, and Google takes her down a wrong road, and it's blocked off. And she's like, "What? This isn't even a road." So she backs up, and Google says, take a U-turn if possible. And she goes, "Give me better directions if possible." And that was the moment I was like, oh, I have to watch this movie because I love her. The
Yeah.
one line, like, I'm already completely rooting for her. That little bit of sass, but like, she's smart and she goes on, she's empathetic at the same time. And I really enjoyed that movie. It wasn't a slasher, it wasn't comedic at all, but it was more of a survival horror kind of thing. I think I'm comparing this movie to it a lot because a lot of the same things kind of come up except in Rust Creek.
The hillbilly characters,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and even they were entertaining more so to watch because they were real people rather than just cardboard cutouts of hillbillies walking around. They had motives and they were working with the sheriff, and even the sheriff himself, he was like, he stabbed his own partner in the back because he was starting to realize how corrupt he was. He was trying to cover his tracks. So there's so much more character and story in that in Rust Creek. I don't know if this movie was like trying to do something like that. I don't,
Maybe.
maybe, but
I I don't know. I never saw that, but that sounds really good, and I want to see it now.
yeah.
I like when the characters are relatable and you definitely can connect with them in some way. Like you said that when you heard her say she was yelling at Google and everything,
Yeah.
you probably did the same thing at some point in your life. And that's where it because like this movie, all it had was people yelling at each other and then somebody being racist most of the time. And Like, cause like the guy has his hand on the girl's throat
Mm,
at one point and shoved up against a car, and a older black gentleman comes up to help, right?
mm,
And gets him off her,
mm,
right? Basically, and everything. And then he's looked to be the idiot, even to the girl who's being choked. And I get people try to say that like girls protect those people even if they know like they're being abused, you know, whatever, like, but I just didn't buy that. Like
mm.
I bought, like, I would have liked it better if they were just nicer,
Yeah.
to the guy, period. Like the other people, like the racist guy can stay like a jerk. I don't care. I knew like from the very beginning he was gonna die.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling almost everybody was gonna die because there's nobody that that could that I cared about enough where, I don't
Yeah.
know. It, I don't know. Ugh. Anyway,
Also, slightly worried about that one. First of all, there's one black character, and the rest of the cast is all white, which is like, it's just suspicious in a way, because like, why are you casting only one black character? And then the fact that he comes up and he's sort of mysterious, it gives me mystical black person stereotype vibes, which is not a good thing in a lot of horror movies. They're always like the old lady who knows magic or the old man who has some sort of wisdom as like, was that really necessary to add in there? The guy, he's racist, and I don't think that would have come up if he didn't interact with a person of color in the movie. But he's also a jerk. He's abusive to women. He's misogynistic. Like, I don't know if it was really necessary to throw in the one black character and make him mysterious and
mhm.
stereotypical just to have the guy come out as racist. Like, I,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I guess that you had to somehow,
yeah,
do it, like if you wanted to have the character be racist. But like why? Why even? Why do we need that? Like
yeah,
what did that do to the movie like at all? And and then he turns out to be like part of their of the he's not a family member, I don't think. Like that doesn't make any sense. But he helps them because he like kidnaps the girl in the car or whatever. And I'm just like, and I didn't like that because I called it real quick.
yeah,
Like, don't get in the car, even to that guy,
yeah,
or whatever. Um, and then, it was it's just the movie just droned on for too long, and that's my biggest problem because when you have a movie on Tubi, you get the commercials and then you get, so if it's already, what was it, an hour and a half or longer, I think
yeah, about an hour and a half.
about an hour and 34 minutes, way too long. Like this needs to be like an hour and 20. Like they need to cut down like 14 minutes of this movie. Because it it needs to fly like that. And there's so many times where I'm just like, "Oh God, please just get to the cabin." Like, and they kill the kid by accident. They run him over. And then they're arguing about it. I'm like, "You're arguing in broad daylight. Shut up and
Yeah,
just, right? Like, stop it and just get to the get to wherever you need to go to." So they go and
yeah,
take the kid, they get pulled over by the cop. Then they go somewhere else and dump the body. I'm like, dump the body at the fucking cabin.
yeah,
Like, when you get to the cabin, start digging and stuff. Like, there's no reason to like dump the body to the water and stuff like that because obviously somebody's gonna find it, and who's going to be, who's going to be looked at? The people who have blood on their car, and on top of that are new in town. These
yeah,
aren't, the locals. So, you know, and they looked very suspicious throughout the whole time because they were nervous. And if you're nervous about, something like that, that, it's just
No.
it's ridiculous. I don't know. Did you have more notes that you had on?
Yeah, like you were saying, I would have waited until nightfall at least to hide a body. That I feel like that's common sense. And then they do go to a lake and like, okay, they're gonna dump the body in the water. But then they throw it, it doesn't land in the water, it lands on the shore. I'm like, okay.
And they don't go and
What?
like push it into the water.
Yeah.
They just go, okay, well, you know, I I did a movie once where a short film where I couldn't dig a hole in my backyard to bury somebody, so I put it in my what is it underneath my deck and everything. But it was like you could see the body very easily when they came over, and I was like, it does look pretty bad, but it was my first, short film,
Yeah.
like horror short film, so I was not caring whether or
Yeah.
not it was good or not. When you look at that, there's like a complete difference than, somebody when somebody does something like that and you're like, I mean, all it takes is them going over there and pushing the body into the water. Did the kid not want to get wet? I mean, what was the deal with that? And
Yeah.
once again, it's easy to just do this at night. But the thing is, they had to get caught, right? They had to
Yeah.
get caught. And I don't even know how they got caught because we never see, if we had seen somebody watching them, you know, that would have been cool. Like if
Or even
somebody.
like a camera point of view, like through the trees, as if someone was watching them. Like,
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Like
yeah,
like a camera like point of view and seeing like that somebody is watching them
yeah,
drive away or at the lake or whatever, and they could just, you know, do that. But unfortunately, we don't get that. We don't even get that. So
yeah,
like how did these people even know the kid was murdered by them?
yeah.
Just when the kid didn't come home, all of a sudden they just assumed, like.
There, there was a point at the lake where Madeline, the main girl, starts freaking out. She's like, "Oh my God, someone saw us! I know someone saw us," but they don't show anything. She's just freaking out, looking at the water,
Right.
and it's so easy to miss.
Yeah. I mean, it's like there was another short I had done and somebody asked me to put like a POV shot or whatever, and I liked him the producer asked me to do that, and I said no, and I had a reason for it because I didn't already want to have that like somebody watching, them or whatever, because that would already give away the where it was going to go and everything. And there was never a person supposed to be watching. It was the person who's dead. He just thought it would look like a cool shot or something. Understandably for another movie, but I had to step my foot down and we didn't work with each other after that. It wasn't I think it's just because he thought I don't listen to him and I was just like, as a director, sometimes you got to make calls like that where you feel like you're right and everything. And since then, I've watched that short millions of times, and I've agreed that I wouldn't have wanted a shot like that into the movie. But if I were doing something where it had to make sense, like somebody saw something and then they come and attack later because of that, that is where it works. And when you don't have that, it doesn't make any sense. And when it doesn't make any sense, that's when you lose the audience. Um, and so you have to put these little things in there, and yeah, so I feel like this movie should have been so much better and it had potential.
Yeah,
And that's sort of why I'm disappointed by it. Like it had potential to be good and it just kind of blah, to me.
yeah.
You know. Uh, Go ahead.
I was gonna say too, the survival instincts of the characters was something that was a thorn in my side watching it, especially from the women, because like growing up as a woman, you learn, you kind of develop an instinct early to what to watch out for in terms of people to be wary of and situations that are unsafe. And it's one thing to be with a group of your friends and have two guys with you. You feel a little safer, but still, there was one point where the girlfriend of the main guy ran away, and she heard a harmonica sound in the woods, and she followed it to these two creepy guys, and she starts almost flirting with them. And that was one moment where I was like, this has to be like the minute the director called cut, the actors had to have started breaking out laughing because it's just such a weird scene. And that's why I say maybe they meant something to be funny, as in like the actors had fun filming these really bad scenes. Because
Right.
like I know a scene like that where it's like, oh, a snake charmer, but it's a guy with a harmonica and a girl. Like, if I were on set, I would have been every time they called cut, I would have started laughing at that scene. And I hope the actors at least kind of had fun with it in ways. But
Well, yeah. So the character runs off because
yeah.
she's being attacked by her boyfriend. She just wants to get away. And then, yeah, so, and all of a sudden she hears this harmonicas. She starts going to the harmonicas, which, I'm sorry, but have you ever watched Deliverance? No, get away from backwoods hillbilly people like that. And so she goes there, she deals with you know, she goes and deals with these people, and then obviously they attack her, or whatever, and knock her out or whatever, and do all that stuff. And you're right, it would be sort of funny, but like, okay, so say this is a script, because I'm not even sure if it was a script. And not just the director saying, go over here and do this and say these lines, do this line, right? I want these characters come in and do this, or whatever, because that would actually make more sense. Then it would just make everything that happened just, you know, not make any sense anyway. So that'll work. Um, but if you read the script as an actor and, you were like, okay, I'll do this part, would you, like the girl like there, wouldn't you tell the director, I don't like, this is kind of weird. Like, I don't know if my character would just randomly go to these people, like, or would
Yeah,
you just let it just go?
if I was comfortable communicating with the director, I would definitely and I've worked in Iowa, I worked on a project where the director is really he asks for feedback from his actors like, "Hey, what do you think about this script, this scene? Should I change anything? Does it make sense? Do you have any suggestions?" And there a lot of small filmmakers are really open to that kind of communication. If it were a situation where the director is like, no, you have to do this, I'm not asking for any feedback, I'd probably just end up doing it if I'm getting paid to do it. But yeah, if they were asking for feedback, I'd definitely be like, hey, maybe we can find a different kind of motivation or rework the scene in a way that makes a little more sense so that's easier to act and it helps the film overall.
Yeah. So do you travel a lot for film? Do you do like, so you worked on that one, Iowa?
Yeah, it's just an hour or 2 hours away in northern Iowa. I would like to travel more for films, but mostly it's been in Minnesota, all around the Twin Cities. But
Nice.
yeah, I actually have a couple of film projects out on YouTube, but from that director, Creature of Sherwood Lake, and we're coming out with the Mantis Ring.
Ooh,
And yeah, it's the creature. It was one of my first ever film projects. It was fun. The director was nice. The cast, we joked a lot on set. We had fun, and it's kind of a slasher film, but it's like it was really heavily reliant on characters, and the characters were likable, basically.
nice.
So
That's
Yeah.
always good, you know.
Yeah.
Especially like when you read a script and you're like, I can't like connect with this character, or I mean, I guess sometimes you don't want to necessarily like be able to like feel like you want somebody who's like maybe exact opposite of you, because that's a lot of the fun part of acting, right?
Yeah.
Is playing different roles, and you don't want to play you all the time, or
Yeah.
somebody close to you. You want to play somebody who's like the villain, or or something that like you don't really see yourself as. But I mean, it's just movies like this, I just get frustrated because the writing should be so much better. The dialogue should be feel so much more real, and it just feels like every other slasher movie put into one movie, and maybe that was the point. I can't say it's not, but I mean, you say you watch slashers, you're very critical on slashers. I mean, is that your favorite genre, or
I'd say my favorite genre is more monsters and paranormal. One of my favorite horror movies is The Ritual on Netflix.
nice?
Really awesome monster puppeteering and design. Like every time I see it, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I have a lot of favorite movies of different genres, and I think it's possible that there is a favorite movie out there of the slasher genre that I haven't seen yet. It's just hard to connect with the characters, and I need something a little more than just a bunch of gore to like, which a lot of slasher fans I've met, they're like, oh, this movie's so gory, it's great. Like, okay, but what else is there?
Well, have you seen the movie You're Next?
I think I've heard of it. I haven't seen it yet.
So it's a really good, like it's a, I guess it's a slasher film, but it's all set at a house during a time where like a sort of a family reunion is happening, and these people like is like sort of home invasion, kind of thing, but with twists and turns. And I really liked it. It's the guy who now is directing like the Godzilla movies
Oh,
and King Kong versus Godzilla movies and stuff like that. So good for him. But he started off in the horror genre doing like independent horror stuff, and Your Next was the movie that really put him on the map. Later he got to do like Blair Witch. His name's Adam Wingard. You know, terrific filmmaker out there. And that's what I like with him and like Ty West, who did like Cabin Fever 2, and now he's doing the Maxine movie and stuff like that. I mean, all these directors started out independent back in the early 2000s and stuff, or yeah, early 2000s, and then now they're out there making, I mean, took them a while, but now they're making like these really big Hollywood movies, and
yeah,
I'm like freaking happy,
yeah.
for that, because a lot of work. Maybe Andrew Pizzo after he directs a few more movies, uh, I have a feeling he'll direct a few more, but he's mainly a cinematographer, so I'm guessing he's just gonna continue doing that. Because I mean, I haven't seen the movies he's did he DP for, so I can't say if he's just, but he keeps getting hired. Got like over more DPing jobs than he does directing, so he keeps getting hired. Obviously, he's a pretty good DP. Like I would work with him on that, but I don't know. I'd have to see a script if he ever wants to, if I'd ever produce something he directed. 'Cause I
Yeah,
would be like, I don't know, buddy. You know,
yeah,
your your last movie was not
yeah.
the greatest.
I think it definitely could have been saved with a bit more re-editing of the script and revisiting some stuff and just diving deeper into the why of certain characters and yeah.
I mean, it's funny because I hear all the time where I'll finish a movie, right? And people will see it, and then people will be like, "Oh man, you should go and fix this scene." I'm like, you know how much money that costs? Like, you can't
Yeah.
just go and fix it. It's once it's done, it's done. It's over with. Like if you didn't like it, you didn't like it, that's fine. But like I'm not gonna spend some dude asked me to go spend like a couple $1,000 to reshoot a scene, one scene in my movie, and I'm like, oh, that's not happening, bro. No, I don't care if you don't like it. It's not happening.
Yeah.
And he wasn't paying for it either. He was just telling me I should do that. And I was like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I always think about the one thing my director friend of mine learned from film school. The triangle of film creation is like cheap, fast, or good, and you can only choose two of the three. So if it's cheap and fast, it's not going to be good. If it's good and cheap, it's going to take a long time to make, and all around. So
Wow.
yeah,
So it has to be good and
good
cheap.
and cheap or good and fast. And if it's good and fast, it can't be cheap. If it's good and cheap, it's gonna take a long time to make. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
there you go. Getting cheap. Yeah, that's true though. People don't realize how long sometimes movies take. Like one of my projects, Scream Queen Campfire, that's an anthology. We're just finishing up getting some of the shorts done and stuff, and that started in 2010. So 14 years later, it'll probably be 15 years by the time it actually gets released, and that's fine with me because
yeah,
I mean, I would rather be proud enough, like, because there's still things I'm not proud of that I'm gonna put in there that I can't fix, and everything. Then, then just putting out something I wasn't, that 100% wasn't proud of, or whatever.
yeah.
So, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. I have a movie coming out, a Skyrim fan film that took, I'll say, 4 years in total to make. We were rehearsing one year, and then we started filming next summer. And the cast is, or the crew is basically one guy who produced and wrote, and now he's doing all the special effects for the magic scene in the movie. And that's taken him a couple years to do. And I think that's a lot of commitment to do 2 years. I respect the effort, and I've seen some clips of it, and it already looks amazing. So yeah, that's
Well, I mean yeah, that's the way to do it. If you're gonna finish it, finish it. If you're not going to, just move on to another project. Then, and unfortunately, you get a lot of flack for that too, because if you don't finish the project, people might not work with you again because they didn't have a last completed project. Um, but like these shorts, like there was one uh that started in 2011 that we started and like four people have died since then
oh
and so and people moved away, so there's a lot of problems. We just had to like originally it was going to be a series, and then we're like we can't make a series out of this, we just don't have enough money. And then we're like, let's make it a movie, a feature-length film. And then we're like, no, let's just make it a short, like,
yeah,
and then if it gets done, it gets done, when
yeah,
it gets when. But it'll be really funny to look back and go, oh my God, that was me when I was 28, and I'm 42 now, So I'm
yeah,
like, Jesus, But
yeah.
anywho, well, I guess that about wraps it up. Was there anything else that you wanted to make sure that got discussed?
One the At the very end of the scene, one thing that bothers me, I guess this is the thing that pops up in a lot of horror movies, the bear trap at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't worked directly with they're called foothold traps, the official term. But I do work in wildlife. I do a lot of wildlife related work, and I have experience around foothold traps. And it always bothers me when there's foothold traps in horror movies because they're always used a specific way. A Quiet Place 2 did this. I'm sure it's popped up in a bunch of other movies where the character steps into a foothold trap, it clamps down, and they just start screaming in agony. and sometimes they add the sound effect of bones crunching, and sometimes there's blood. Foothold traps don't do that at all. They're not designed to break bones. They're not designed to rip through flesh. Even the ones with teeth, which are pretty much discontinued today, they're not meant to pierce skin or muscle. And it always bothers me. It's kind of a nerdy thing of mine whenever I see foothold traps. But yeah, at the very end of this movie, she steps into a foothold trap, and it looks like it's at the near her toes, but on her tarsals of her foot. It wouldn't have broken bone. The heaviest it could have been is a bear trap because they have different weights for different animals. They have traps for foxes, for wolves, for bears. It probably was a bear trap based on the size of it. It wouldn't have broken her bones, especially she's wearing looks like boots. So she would have been stuck. Definitely, she would have been stuck, but it wouldn't have been as painful as sitting there screaming in agony. It would kind of be what's the word? Like not as eventful. She would
Right.
just have been like, oh no, I'm stuck. And then
Right.
like the guy could have come out, but oh,
But see, I mean, so you make a really, really good point, and I love
yeah,
that because you are a wildlife person, so you know
yeah,
this stuff. Most
yeah,
people in the world don't know that, and they see it in the films where the blood comes and all that other stuff. So had they done that scene, would have been interesting for a person like you.
yeah,
Everybody else would have been very confused. Like the first person would say, "Oh my God, wouldn't that have ripped through their skin and?" Here's their skin, just like every other movie you see of that in there. So
yeah,
I think you're right that it makes sense that they yeah, or it doesn't make sense that they did it like that, but it does sort of make sense that they did it
yeah,
like that because then everybody would have been very confused and they would have been like, why didn't it hurt her? You know,
yeah,
it hurts everybody else in every other movie. And I probably would have
yeah,
thought that too until you would have came on here and said, no, that's exactly the way it should have been, if
yeah.
eh, but they had to have actually stepped on it for real, so wouldn't like
Uh,
I
well, there is a way to, well, yeah, because the scene actually showed her stepping in it and it closing,
hmm
or did it? Oh,
I think
yeah,
so. But it might if it didn't and they cut away or something, or
yeah,
whatever, uh yeah,
because there,
I
yeah,
go
there are ways to like close the jaws without having any pressure on it.
right.
Well, yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, that's a good point. If she did actually step in it, and if looking at the other scenes where that happens too, like in A Quiet Place, I wonder if they made traps that didn't actually, maybe for fancy props department in Hollywood movies, they can design traps that don't actually have any tension or weight to them, where you can
Mm.
just stick your finger in and it'll close, and it's like, oh, it's just like a little closing pin or clothespin. That
Yeah.
feels, but
I don't know,
yeah,
because like you can't. I don't think they could have built a trap like a fake trap, for
yeah,
the movie, a prop trap. I don't think they would have done that. So they probably used a real bear trap,
oh yeah,
and they somehow figured out to make it. I don't remember exactly because it's been weeks since I saw it. So I don't know if they like if it cut like they cut away from that situation or
yeah,
whatever, and then all of a sudden you hear her go, "Ah," you know,
yeah,
and then or if because yeah, it's every I've seen a lot of these movies, and the way to get somebody to stay there in the middle of the woods is to do that, is to do a bear trap scene,
yeah.
or what did you call it, a
A foothold trap.
foothold trap.
Yeah,
That's awesome. I
yeah.
gotta start remembering. I'm gonna write that down because I'm gonna forget
Okay.
in 2 seconds. But like, I like that. I like learning new words that I never heard of foothold trap.
Yeah.
And that's it. I've only heard it being called bear trap. I never even heard of wolf trap. or whatever,
Oh
or
yeah.
I think I've heard of
Yeah.
fox trap,
Yeah.
but I didn't know those are the same thing as a bear
Yeah.
trap.
Oh yeah, they're all basically the same except they're different sizes. So a fox trap has a circumference of like about that. A wolf trap is a little bit bigger than the bear traps are
Okay.
bigger, based on the size of the animal's foot. Thinking back now on that scene, it almost looks like she's wearing steel-toe boots. I wonder
Right.
if that's what they put her in, because I don't know what she was wearing for the rest of the scene, but if there are a bunch of friends going out to the cabin, it doesn't make sense that she's wearing heavy boots for a vacation.
Vacation in the cabin in the woods, like right?
Yeah.
Like you would think she'd
But
want to wear more comfortable
yeah.
like hiking boots or something,
Yeah.
or whatever, but like no, it like
Yeah.
this movie has so many problems to it.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what? I kind of want to see the sequel just to see if they did anything better, if they learned their lessons, But I don't want to, if it's going to be the same exact movie, like, even running over another kid or something, I'm done. I can't watch this. Like,
Yeah.
this is not for me. Um,
I
so,
think the only good sequel I can think of is if the families of the children who went missing start investigating and send people to try to find them and figure out what happens. And then
yeah.
they get into their own problems.
But still, it sounds like. No, so the sequel, I can read you what it says for the
Oh
sequel
yeah.
already, because they already have an actual info on it or whatever. So Back Row Part 2, um, Charlie Ray is dead, but did Charlie Ray die? He died. He died at the end, right?
I
The- I don't know which one he was.
yeah, me
I guess
neither.
he was because I guess he was the main one, but
Oh.
like he wasn't. There was that other one that kind of kept coming back, and I don't think that was Charlie. Um, but Charlie Ray is dead, but his legacy lives on as a new murdering clan of degenerates begin to slaughter anybody they came in contact with. This includes Riley and her friends who are innocently in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Huh.
Sounds very much like the same movie,
Wow.
except just a new group of kids, which happens in what Wrong Turn and Wrong Turn 2, happens in
Yeah.
the Texas Chainsaw thing. It's just like, but usually, like at least Texas Chainsaw 2 was so different than the first. It was so wacky and weird and so like out there that it just worked for it because it just didn't, it felt like almost like its own, like a different movie. Um, I feel like this is just gonna be the same. Like there's not gonna be it's and if there's another racist in it, I'm definitely not watching it. Because I can't take that kind of crap. I don't like people saying words like that
Yeah.
all the time. Like if you
Yeah.
say it once, fine. If you say it twice, I'm gonna get mad. And if you say it more than that, I'm just
Yeah.
furious because I'm just like I don't like people saying those words.
Yeah. Before I watched it, I was secretly hoping, because he warned me about that, I was secretly hoping, okay, hopefully there's a couple of black characters that come in and they're the ones that say it, because then it's not a big deal. But of course, it was the
Oh,
toxic male white guy
N-
whose entire
See, I would have
personality to me
warned
is
you if it was that.
triggering.
If it was that way, if it would have
Yeah.
been black people saying it, I wouldn't have warned you about it
Oh,
because
yeah.
that because in my opinion, they're allowed to say it if they
Yeah.
want to. Whatever. It's the same thing as like I wouldn't get mad if a bunch of white people call themselves honkies, in a movie. I wouldn't be mad about that. And even then I don't mind people saying that word period. I think it's stupid, but I think it doesn't like hurt me at all. Like
Yeah.
it's not, or cracker or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't like these words I don't care about. They don't like threaten my color or anything. But the N-word was used
Ew.
in context in racism stuff and slavery and all this other stuff. And it's a very derogatory term. And if a black person says it to another black person, that's fine. Even if even if that scene, just like I said in Cabin Fever, when it was used, but it was used like, oh my God, you're kind of thrown off at first. Then later, he's hanging out with those guys, and he's like they're his buddies and everything. They're okay with him saying it. Then I'm okay with that scene in that movie. I just, I thought that was really well done and funny. But when somebody just says it to be, I feel like it's said to be sort of shocking, you know? And I feel like this movie did a lot of that where it was supposed to be shocking. There's an R scene, there's two R scenes, there's two people at the same time, whatever. And then there is a there's the cursing like that. Everybody's cursing every 2 seconds. It starts to lose like the power of cursing to me, you know.
Yeah.
I don't
One
know.
of one of the funniest bits of the movie, the guy was the toxic male guy was like one of the most realistic characters to me because there's so many unfortunately young people that have been red pilled and they're listening to Andrew Tate and all this nonsense online, alpha male bros, and he's that basically. And I wish he wasn't as real as I wish it wasn't a real character, but unfortunately I was listening to him talk and do the scenes and do the lines like, yep, that's a toxic alpha male bro. Like you
I
can find one in every neighborhood.
on Instagram all over the place because I'll go on people's pages, and if I compliment a woman at all of a sudden I'm a beta, like
Uh,
to these alpha males or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not allowed to say somebody's pretty. Like, what the fuck? And I'm like, all right, bro, calm down, quit drinking your steroids, or whatever, because like it gets to this thing where I don't like I almost there I gravitate toward people in my life, guys in my life that are more like me, who aren't bros like that. I do
yeah.
not like those people. Like I know a lot of them in my town that I'm like I do not want to associate myself with those people because those people are just a-holes, and
Yeah.
I don't want to be around that. Um but then you see it online and you're like I can't even get away from it, like
Yeah.
when I'm just going to be nice to somebody or something,
Yeah.
so I mean it
Yeah.
happens,
Yeah.
sadly.
And for a woman, they're downright scary. Like the guy in the movie is so quick to anger and he's so quick to violence. Like
Mhm.
there's no logic going on in his head. It's just spur of the moment. Like, it's scary.
It would have been great had they had a scene where he attacked her, like, when before the black guy came up, and then afterwards she's like, you know what, I'm just gonna get an Uber and leave,
Yeah.
and then you never see her again. She survived,
Yeah.
the whole trip because she was
Yeah.
smart enough to go. Because there's never a smart character in this movie, in these movies. There's
Yeah.
never a smart character. I'm like, and the reason writers feel like they can't have smart characters in the movie is because the movie will be over, right? Because there's no other way.
Yeah.
Um, I watched a movie. This is an older movie from the 90s. It's called Dogfight. It's incredible, but it's a pretty like messed up story. So like these and they call themselves this. So and stuff, but like these jarheads, they
Oh.
are Marines. They are on they're about to go to Vietnam, right? And their last night before they go to Vietnam, they do what's known as a dogfight, where they find the ugliest girl that they can and bring them to this party, and then whoever wins gets the prize money, or
Oh.
whatever. So River Phoenix is in it, with Lily Taylor before he passed away. And River Phoenix, incredible actor, feels sorry for this girl because he's about to bring her into this thing and doesn't want to do it because he likes her. but then he does, and then she finds out, and usually that's when the movie ends. It's like they find out, and then they make up, and that's it. Well, that was in the beginning of the movie. The rest of the movie goes into a different place that normally wouldn't have gone to, and I loved it. And I'm like, that was a smart way to do those type of movies where it's like, she's all that, where, there's that bet and everything and all this other stuff, and then, the bet is found out, but that's usually at the end of the movie. The
Yeah.
last like 30 minutes or something. That's found out in the last 20 minutes is them trying to get the person back or whatever, and everything.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in this. That's what this movie needed. This movie needed to go places where no slasher has gone, but they're not, I guess the writers in these kind of things aren't smart enough to think that way. They want to
Yeah.
just do something typical of what other people have watched, I guess.
That's one thing I want to do one day as a writer. Make a horror movie conflict. Maybe not a slasher, but something that's like that all the characters are smart and the antagonist is smart, and just keep building up. It's really hard to do,
Yeah,
especially because I'm only so smart myself.
right,
But just challenge myself and write a story where both sides are trying to outwit each other and just keep going up from there. Like I think that's how you can get some really cool stories going. But you just gotta tough it out.
right. Like I like movies that take chances. Like
Yeah.
for slashers, like Tucker and Dale versus Evil, where it's just bad circumstances and bad things just keep happening, or whatever. But like, and it's the cause because everybody is like afraid of whatever. And so they're all of a sudden they're running into things that are killing them or they're doing whatever. And it's so funny because it's just so ridiculous. Everything is just so like
Oh
that. And
yeah.
that is great when you take something that's a typical cliche genre and you're able to um make it so unpredictable that you have no idea who's going to live and who's going to die. That is that it's like I would love it for where like Psycho. The movie Psycho had Norman Bates and Janet Leigh, and Janet Leigh was a big star back then, so you thought Janet Leigh was going to be the one who lived. She doesn't. I mean, and this isn't a spoiler because it happens pretty quickly, and Scream with Drew Barrymore, they took all these chances that most people won't take. So I feel like if you do write a really smart horror, let me know.
Yeah.
I would love to watch that because it's
Oh
hard. Um,
yeah.
and it's easier to say these people do dumb stuff you know, right, than it is for them to be smarter than uh like I would love to see like nerds, like real nerds,
Yeah.
who know how to get out of a but also maybe know street smarts too. So like they're like the ultimate nerd who can get out of any situation and
Oh
stuff and use math or whatever. That like why hasn't anybody done like a revenge of the nerds like horror film?
yeah. That could be so easy to write because like nerds, they prank the bully in school, and the bully goes psychotic and goes after the nerds, and the nerds are like, okay, we're gonna Home Alone this now.
Yeah,
Like,
we're gonna start setting up yeah, they like get their revenge again on him by like by setting up traps or whatever that don't kill him, but like
yep.
start just injuring him more and more. After a while the guy is just so fed up he's still trying to get them because, whatever, right? And they're getting their revenge on the bull. That's a good idea. Damn.
Oh wait, we gotta pause the recording. Start writing.
I would write that with you for
Oh
sure.
yeah, I'd be
Uh
down.
yeah. So all right,
Yeah.
well, everybody, do not steal our idea. I may have to
Yeah.
delete this because this is a good idea, and I don't know. We'll copyright it real
Yeah.
quick. Anyway, everybody, I think that's about wraps it up, right? Like, there's nothing else you wanted to
Yeah.
say. Yeah. So, do I recommend this movie? Probably not, but it's on Tubi for free. If this sounded like something you're interested in, go see it, I guess. But all in all, I can't physically. I'm like, I'd have to give it a thumbs down, you know.
Yeah.
What about you?
Thumbs down for me, unless people like really like making fun of bad movies, like M or Mystery Science Theater, like
Misty
do
3K.
the do the riff track of it. That would be fun.
Yeah,
Um,
get drunk and watch this with a bunch of friends and laugh at how stupid the decisions are that get made, I
yeah.
guess, in this movie or whatnot. But aside from that, yeah, I definitely could not recommend this movie. There's just too much stupidity, I guess, or whatever, like it's just it, it it just feels like somebody's first draft, and that happens a lot, especially in indie horror films. It's just, my buddy Paul, who's part of Indie Film Cafe with me, he would always say, um, writing is the one thing that costs the least amount of money. You know, like it might take your time, but it doesn't cost you a damn thing to write something, and everything. I mean, unless you get paid for it or whatever, then you get money for it. But aside from that, most of these people are not getting paid, and they're not even probably getting paid after the movie's out on Tubi. They're just doing this because they love the genre and they want to continue doing it, and maybe they'll get some money, but I would hope so because if they're gonna make a sequel out of this, there's got to be something with it. Um, all in all, I think this is just a sort of okay movie that should have been a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a sucky thing. But I don't know if you liked the movie when you saw it. Please let us know if you liked it, because apparently we were not thrilled by this movie as much. And I'm glad I warned you a couple things because I don't I keep forgetting. Well, especially when I haven't watched the movie yet, right? Like this is a first time watch. So I haven't watched the movie yet. I have no idea if there's vicious scenes like that or anything. But I also don't know if other people might be triggered. Like people are triggered by the word, and
Yeah.
I realize that. And I now have been trying to be very careful how, especially with somebody I don't know that well, how I communicate with people because I don't want, like, I don't want to trigger people. I don't want to make people go into trauma, that they've been dealing with. So, well, all right. Thank you, Anna.
Yeah.
How was your first day on here?
It was
Good?
great. Yeah, it was. I love talking with you. This has been really fun.
Yeah, I'll have to bring you back for something. I don't know if it'll
Yeah.
be for this again because kind of trying to get a bunch of new people on this one. But also
Yeah.
did 31 days of indie horror for October, so maybe I'll get you for that coming up.
Yeah.
Um,
I definitely recommend watching Rust Creek if you want to like detox after this movie. It's like a complete 180 from this. It's
I just
so
need
much
like
better.
a cleansing right now
Yeah.
of like um
Yeah.
I sort of been doing that already anyway. I've been watching Criterion films. Like I watched that Dogfight is on Criterion, and those are much better movies.
Yeah.
I have to do that because I watch so much indie horror films and stuff, especially doing the 31 days and now also first time watch Fridays. Like I've been watching so many of them and so many are just not good. And it's hard to make a good movie. It is,
Yeah.
because like even if you think the movie is going to be fantastic once you've made it, everybody has their own taste. This
Yeah.
may not be okay with certain people, and some people may hate this movie to like death. Some people may
Yeah.
love it. And once again, if you love it, please let us know.
Yeah.
Like if we're wrong about whatever, you felt, but I don't know. I just felt like this movie should have been better and had potential. And that is usually the worst part is when a movie has potential and could have been better and I feel like they just slacked off and they made just finished a movie, which is fine, but it deserved better dialogue, better writing period, better. The direction's okay. I mean, not. I guess direction should have been better too because that would have helped with the acting and the writing. And I feel like some of those actors were really good, and I feel like I'm sorry that they were in this movie.
Yeah.
I'd work with a bunch of those actors. And actually to go to your point be from earlier, when I asked you, would you have acted in this movie and stuff, and a lot of it was because you would said no because of the nudity. There's a lot of female characters who had nudity. Um, Finding female actors who do nudity these days is harder, unless they're like adult film stars already or something, and they don't mind doing that stuff. But like regular actors who've never done nudity before, a lot of them don't want to do it, because once you do nudity, sort of can never go back from that, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, people will see it, and I don't know if like if you have a family, or whatever, and your son's like, "Oh, I want to see your movie." Nope, don't want you seeing that, son. I don't want to see you don't want to see mommy or daddy naked,
Yeah.
Um,
There's movies I have that don't have nudity that I would not want my family to watch with me.
right?
Yeah.
And that's understandable too. Like I wouldn't, if yeah, I've shown my parents my movies, but like thankfully I have never had nudity. I almost did, and I even turned the nudity down after when we started shooting, and mainly it was because of time. But I still paid the people for the nudity that they didn't end up doing. It was, because I promised them that we would, that whatever, I'm not gonna renege on it because I chose not to. But I chose not to, and I feel like it's a better that I did because so many times, there's just nudity for the sake of nudity, and stuff. So, but anyway. And this movie this is the genre that this sort of happens in, you know, but even Hollywood gets away from doing that. Like Wrong Turn did not have any nudity in it whatsoever. I don't believe, yeah, I don't believe it. Like I watched it sort of recently. I don't remember any nudity in that movie, and it didn't need it. Like nobody was complaining, "Oh man, this movie didn't have nudity." Like if you're complaining about that, you need to go look up for it on the internet or
Yeah.
or whatever. All right, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. I will be back next week with a brand new episode, most likely. I haven't recorded it yet, so who knows? I'm hoping. But this will be out in August. So it's gonna start the basically getting ready for fall to the fall time of everything. So things are gonna be pretty crazy again. Because summer is gonna be ending, and that's when all the Halloween stuff starts coming out, and everything. Are you excited about that?
Oh yeah. Definitely. I'm
Okay.
starting to binge watch What We Do in the Shadows over again. So
Aw. When's that new season? Is that new season coming out or
I think there is. I don't know when yet.
Cobra Kai
I'm
just came out, so I'm
oh,
just binge watch that. Well, there's
cool.
only 5 episodes. Netflix has been doing that where they only show like 5 episodes, and for to start with, then there's like 5 more later, and then there's gonna be 5 more next year, and I'm like, oh. Just like I get it, so people don't just binge watch it, but then people are just gonna wait till next year and then just binge watch everything, the
Yeah.
whole show. So like, why you're just hurting the people who actually want to see the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
all right. I think that's about it. That wraps it up. I hope everybody had a good time and enjoyed this, and check me out next week. Till then, everybody, Anna, if you stick around, I'll chat with you for a second,
Oh,
and
sure.
everybody else, have a good one. Bye.